Alex Colazzo,
Present.
Ruthie Cummins, Caleb Bunter,
I'm here.
Carrie Villeneuve,
Here.
Charlie Lykoff,
Can you hear me now?
yes. Darren Heitner,
Here.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
Here.
Gail Butler, Greg Martin,
I'm here.
Joanne Smith,
Here.
Mariana Seiler,
Here.
Mary Pelican,
Here.
Mr. Robert Payne,
He was here a second ago.
He's present. He's on mute.
your phone is muted. Steffi Pascal,
Yeah.
I got you, Mr. Payne, thank you.
Okay.
Here.
And Tangerine Moore.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right, we'll move forward to the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag, though?
That part, but it's your option.
I'm sorry?
We don't have one at present, so if you want to, you can skip that.
All right, we'll pass that and move to the approval of the minutes then. Has everyone received the minutes? I know they were emailed out.
Yes.
Are there any changes or objections to the existing minutes as written?
None that I can see. I so move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, I didn't get who seconded it?
Joanne.
Okay.
Can we have a vote for approval?
Aye.
I'll just go
Aye.
through roll call to make it easier, Caleb.
Okay.
Alex Colazzo,
I was absent at the last meeting, so I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Brucey Cummins, Caleb Gunter,
I move to approve.
Carrie Villeneuve,
Yes.
Charlie Lykoff,
Yes.
Darren Heitner,
I was absent at the last meeting. I will also abstain.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Gail Butler, Greg Martin,
Yes.
Joanne Smith,
Yes.
Mariana Seiler,
Oh, approve.
Mary Pelican,
Approve.
Robert Payne,
Approve.
Steffi Pascal,
Approve.
and Tangerine Moore. Tangerine Moore?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Motion carry. Minutes are approved.
All right, thank you. I think we move to our first item agenda, which is the city manager.
So good evening, Parks and Rec and Beaches Advisory Board. It's good to see you all. Thank you for allowing me to attend tonight and make a quick presentation on your agenda. I'd like to involve some of our staff here in just a second, but by way of a little background, as you know, in Fort Lauderdale, we are in the middle of completing the Aquatic Center for a very long time, much needed project. It has really turned into 3 individual projects. along the way. And I think it's important that I touch just briefly on the background so you can have some sense as to how we've gotten to where we are today. Initially, when we went forward with moving with the Aquatic Center and moving the project forward, we went to bid in the traditional solicited process to do a replacement of the competition pools, dive pool, dive tower, and the kind of the guts of the Aquatic Center itself. If you're familiar with that site, you will know that it is surrounded by buildings. We have an east and a west building, a north and a south. The north building was contemplated in the initial solicitation, largely because that's where the grandstands are. Along the way, we have now also been in receipt of 2 unsolicited proposals, one for the south building, and then one for the east and west building that would be for the Swimming Hall of Fame. Tonight I come to you with a project of building. We've been here before with this project. It came into the city in a bit of a non-traditional method. Usually we put together RFPs, we go solicit what we want to build, and we have multiple people build a bid on it. But we're much further along in the design of what we want to build when we go to the market with that competitive solicitation. When we had this one come to us in the form of an unsolicited proposal, it was proposed because it just seemed by the person that was doing the work out there at the Aquatic Center that if there was ever a time to work on the south building, it really should be prior to putting down brand new pool decking and working on the pools. And one of the things that the commission said early on was, let's look at the locker room and see if we can enhance it. When they said that early on, what they meant was to renovate what was there and existing, not to build new. But when we got into the guts of that building, if you're familiar with the way that the Florida statutes work in the building codes and substantial improvement, once you do more than 50% plus 1% improvement of a facility, it has to be raised to all new different elevations and all new Florida building codes and wind requirements. And so you very quickly get put into buildings like this. They're easier to start anew and just build to the new code. And they're often, frankly, they're more cost effective than trying to go in and retrofit a very old building. What we have is a very old building. We were in front of you once before with a request for park bond funding in the amount of $7 million to build that locker room aquatic center. I've got staff here tonight who is prepared to present, and as they presented to me, as the project gets further along and the plans get further developed and they get further honed in, building on a man-made peninsula has presented some challenges, and there's some additional subgrade work that has to be done to that facility, that building, the locker room, to make it a reality. I always like, from the perspective of funding and how we prioritize funding, I like to go to restricted funds before I go to non-restricted funds for projects, just because non-restricted funds are easier in a pinch to go to. The city is certainly financially capable of looking at multiple different ways of funding this particular part of the project. I do not think it's eligible for park impact fees because we already have a locker room, and as you know, to use impact fees, you have to do capacity enhancements or something we don't already have. So I think that this is ripe for park bond funding, potentially backstopped by the general fund if I need to. But again, I like to go to restricted funds, park bond funds, or restricted funds for park use as an initial ask. And so tonight, what we'll come to this board and ask for additional funding for that locker room at $3.5 million. It has come in at $10.5. I can tell you the commission is well aware of the funding gap, and generally, although I can't pull them, generally is supportive of the project and said we have one time to get this right. And that's why when I asked them if I should go up here before the Parks Board and present it, I have a definite set of confidence that the majority of them wanted us to make this presentation tonight, and that's why I'm here. So having said those words, I'm going to stick around to take questions. If you all would let us just for a couple more minutes, turn it over to Tom Green so he can give you some background as how this project has gotten from where it was when they were in front of you before to where it is now, and what we've learned along the way that causes us to return and seek additional park bond funding for this particular project. Tom?
Can I just interrupt real quick? The city moderator, Gail Butler's trying to get on the line, and apparently she can't get in.
Deborah, is she calling in via telephone?
Yes.
You have the last four digits of her phone number?
Yeah, hang on a second. Last four digits would be 8196.
I don't see that phone number here.
Why don't you tell me what number she should be calling? Is there a specific number she should be calling?
669
669.
254
Oh, wait a second. It's not 954. 6669
254
254
5252.
5252.
And then she just put the meeting ID. You can find the meeting ID on the top left hand side of your screen. It's a little I. I'm sorry, it's a green shield with a check mark.
It's a yellow shield as far from what I can tell. Yes, I can see it.
I'm sorry, Leona, if you could just contact me via Teams, then we could get this resolved off air.
Okay. In the meantime, can you please go ahead and give Thomas Green share and rights so he can go ahead with the presentation?
Yes, he has the ability to share screen.
Great. Thank you, Leona. And thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time this evening. For those that don't know me, my name is Tom Green. I'm one of the project managers for the city of Fort Lauderdale. And city manager did an excellent job kind of introducing the project. I did come before you last year with a presentation for the Aquatic Center, in particular for the South Building. And since then, the purpose of tonight, just like the manager alluded to, is to kind of show you what we came with and what this new building has progressed into and some of the cost drivers for the project. Kind of in particular, we kind of chunk things out into a few different buckets that we want to run by you. In addition to that, kind of show you the kind of how the South Building ties into the site and really how the South Building is joined at the hip with what we're doing currently for the pools and really emphasis to move forward with this project. With that, Leona, I do have Hensel Phelps on the line and I believe they have the presentation. Are we able to get HP or moderator, everybody get Hensel Phelps the ability to share their screen? Otherwise, I'm prepared to do the presentation with mine. There should be a gentleman, Kevin Curry, on the line.
Yep. Yes, they all have ability to share screen.
Okay. And while they pull it up, Hensel Phelps is our design builder for the project. And we have Kevin Curry, I believe, Chad Thompson, who's a general superintendent, and Corey Olson on the line, who's our project exec, and they can kind of run you through the slides for the project. And again, really the purpose of what we're trying to show folks tonight is what did this rendering look like when we first came to you, how this design has grown, what we've encountered on the site as we've gotten smarter about how we're able to build this project, and really how it integrates with the aquatic center pools and really the need to move this project forward. And with that, Kevin, I'll let you and your team kind of take over on the slideshow.
So good evening, I'm Corey Olson. I'm the operations manager for Hensel Phelps here in South Florida. Can everybody hear me okay? Because I'm coming to you through Kevin Curry.
Yeah, Corey,
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
You sounded great.
Oh, we thought it'd be important to just kind of
Corey, this is Chris. That's not working. We were having glimpses of you, and then you went away.
Are you seeing the shared screen at least?
We can see the shared screen, and now we can hear you. So go ahead.
Okay. So here you'll see a rendering of the original building that we had crafted as a part of the unsolicited proposal. So I think it's important that we just kind of go through the timeline of what has transpired since we worked on this originally in mid-2019. So if you go to the next slide. So initially, when we started working on the south building, the 27-meter tower that you see on the right-hand side was not fully contemplated. It was being kicked around, and it wasn't really until late in 2019 that we knew that that was going to be moving ahead. And so that's where, we did receive a change order to incorporate the 27-meter dive tower. And then you'll see the building in the foreground is the north building that Chris had spoke about that was contemplated. And so that whole integration of the 27-meter tower and the observation deck kind of changed the entire look of the complex and what we were ultimately trying to accomplish. So if you go to the next slide. Actually, hold there 1 second, Kevin. I'm sorry. And then to the left of the 27-meter tower, you would see that just overlaid into the existing south building, which is really past its useful life, as Chris had described. Next. So from the time we submitted the original 27-meter tower and we took a look at how the facility and the complex should really be integrated, and also received some comments back from the DRC, you can see how the design has progressed to really tie it into the 27-meter tower and make it more harmonious with the north building there. Everybody see the diver mid jump there? Also very important. Okay. So just from a timeline perspective, again, we started contemplating this really in May of 19, and we worked in August and September to come up with the initial requirements for this. And we turned that unsolicited proposal in October. So that's really what the initial $7 million budget was based on, the rendering on the left-hand side. And then just, kind of working our way through the process, it did take us until December to get it formally accepted. We started negotiations in early 2020, but as we know, the world came to a grinding halt in March. So by the time we got things kind of kicked back off again after the COVID slowdown, we really didn't have an interim agreement in place until August, at which time we then went and implemented the designs that you've seen through September, October, and November, and went out to pricing, to kind of check the marketplace at that point. So it was really December, January timeframe that we worked on finalizing the pricing. Next slide. And so as Chris said, we're in a position now where the ultimately, the final program and architecture that you see did drive some cost overruns. And without going through line item detail, we thought it would be important to just kind of put this in some big categories that folks could understand. So there's about $500,000 of additional site work that he mentioned. We had gone in with the assumptions that we could hope to reuse the existing underground utilities. As we did more exploratory work, we just found out that was not possible. And so there's a lot of utilities that'll have to run across the entire site back to the north to tie in, and we'll show you that in some other slides here later. And then there was about $750,000 in additional program square footage and architectural enhancements that you've seen here. And another $750,000 in the mechanical and electrical systems to feed all of that. And then really kind of, one of the most unfortunate things with the delay that was really beyond any of our control is we had intended to use the same staff, a lot of the same, general conditions, overhead type these at the same time as we were doing the initial aquatic complex. And that's just not really happening anymore. And you'll see how, these things are now, instead of being done concurrently, we're going to have these additional costs incurred over the duration of this job. And then we also, learned that the city's piece of this was not really contemplated in the initial $7 million. So there's additional scope that will be required by the city for the IT equipment, new furniture, gym equipment, and then the permit fees and threshold inspections, which were part of the city's scope. So, those are kind of the big buckets that Tom described that we've really seen drive some of this. Okay, next slide. And then, you'll see here the $7 million that was approved originally last year with the additional 2.7, to accommodate the things we showed before, along with the additional 800 for the city. Next slide. Okay, Kevin, you want to talk about Chad to the logistics?
Good evening, Chad Thompson, the General Superintendent. And along with what Corey just mentioned, with the jobs being more finished to start instead of being concurrent, I'll ask the same thing. You guys can hear me, right? Yeah, okay. We attempted to put together a bit of a phasing plan. As you know, these projects are right next to each other. Chris said they're really like 3 projects, but they're all pretty much touching each other. This phasing drawing, the blue line kind of outlines a potential phasing approach, which will isolate the south building, which is at the bottom of the page, with the ongoing construction that will be the south building when this goes forward. And it will allow access and use of the dive wells and the existing training pool and facilities that are being constructed right now. Here we're going to show just some snapshots of current conditions. Down here at the bottom, you've got the new dive well where that box just popped in, where the new 27-meter will go. That's the new north bathroom building, new surface parking lot upgrades. Again, these are construction activities that are going on right now, all around where, if you'll point out, if you're done clicking, if you'll highlight, here is where that existing south building is that will have to be demoed, and then where the new construction will have to go in amongst all of this. And I know Chris and Tom both touched on, this has direct ties, obviously, with the pool deck, with the new competition pool, and the surrounding appurtenances. Here we got another shot, just looking south, towards the south building, again, just showing proximity. But you can also see progress. You can see the new grandstand that's actually completely placed out at this time. This is a slightly older photograph. But, and back over to Mr. Green.
So for next steps, what we're really targeting for, there's 2 things on the slide that I just want to highlight is, you know, if everything is able to move forward, that we hope can move forward, we're targeting a May timeframe for a comprehensive agreement. As the manager mentioned, what we are doing is under an unsolicited proposal, and there are certain statute requirements that we have to follow. And what basically unlocks a door to construction is a executed comprehensive agreement. So that's a target for the city in terms of moving forward with the big heavy construction for the site. And a little further to the right is when we're hoping to be completed by, which will be that July of 2022. And you know, with the site being in such close proximity, if there's an opportunity, like Chad had mentioned, for a phasing, we certainly want to investigate that. As you get a little smarter and educated on it, there may or may not be that potential there, but as it stands now, we think there is a possibility for it. And the other thing to note as well is successful completion of this south building has all your locker room and timing facilities, and that really opens up the site to truly hosting these competitive events. I don't know, the city and residents are excited to use and enjoy. And with that, I'll let HP finish up talking about schedule for the project.
So here we're going to kind of show the overall timeline of the construction progress. The first blue bars, that's the current construction that we just showed going on and showing getting completed in August. I know Corey mentioned as well, you know, we would hope to do this a little bit sooner so we could run these things concurrently. But the green bars are what we're working towards right now to build the south building. So there's going to be overlap, as you can see, and hence with the phasing that we're trying to accomplish, since the construction will take about 12 months or so past the current construction.
I think the only other thing of note is, you know, there could be an opportunity to turn over some of the, you know, the dive well and the training pool, as we mentioned early on, you know, first quarter of next year. But that's really going to be something that we'll have to work through with the city and understand, you know, how comfortable are we collectively to have people swimming out on the deck when there is active construction, you know, right next to the swimming pools there. So That's what we're tracking right now.
So I guess I'll just conclude our presentation by saying that this has evolved along the way. That typically happens with unsolicited proposals because we are not out planning for them and pursuing them on the front end. Again, I think the most appropriate least ask to make is to use restricted funds before unrestricted funds. I've looked at our capital plan to see if there's a way to close the gap, and I could make a recommendation to the commission based upon our existing capital plan, but it would come at the recommendation of pushing further out into the future seawall projects or bridge projects or infrastructure projects. And so I think that this is a more appropriate route to fund this gap. There is dollars in the bank for parks, and this clearly is a park and could benefit from that. So that's what we're here for tonight. I appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions. Look forward to your discussion.
I have a question. I, being a swimmer, and very selfishly want to see this whole thing done, and I'm happy to wait until it's completely finished. We all swim at Carter Park now. If I'm swimming there for another year, I'm fine with that. I don't have any problem with this. I'm just a little bit concerned about the money. It's going to be $10.5 million instead of $7 million. When I look at the parks budget, it looks like that money is there, but I think, we have to think about if there's something else that some other park's going to need. It just worries me a little bit. However, I'm thrilled to see this building replaced, because having swam there, I know how rotten. I think I could knock the old building down all by myself. So I'm just a little bit concerned about the money. Maybe we can get some clarity on what I see is we have about 14 million in extra money when I look at the budget that I have, and I'm no accountant, and it looks like maybe we've used about 10 million of that for the aquatic center. That would be my only concern.
Yeah, that's the only way I'd answer that is certainly along the way. If you recall, we have the 4 district projects. I stopped sort of calling them signature projects, but the 4 district projects, an assortment of projects and other parks along the way. The bond resolution, bond covenants were written such that it allows for substitution in the event that substitution is desired by either the oversight board or the commission itself. And because we're so early on in the parks bond deployment, to the extent Phil and I had this discussion earlier today, to the extent we need to substitute later on, or likely we'll realize along the way some of those projects to come in under what was appropriated for them. We already know the tunnel top is not a $25 million project. We likely know that Lockhart isn't either. And so, there's ways that I've got in my head how we can get across the finish line and also accomplish what we need to accomplish or want to accomplish, what the commission directed we accomplish with this particular aquatic center. So we will figure that out. We may not figure it out tonight, but I'm confident that we're within what the bond covenants allow, and that we'll figure it out so that the projects in the park bond get done. What I don't want is another fire bond. I don't want to get to the end of the 19 years later and still have one station that's not built and not have nearly enough money to build it. So we're going to manage this one much better, much quicker.
Okay, thank you. As long as you can find the money, that's good.
I would like to say that I raised the same concern as Mary, although we've come this far, we really can't stop here. And this should have been part of the comprehensive plan from the very get-go. That south building always needed to be replaced. And yes, there is a concern because we may need that money for other projects. But that being said, I also believe that it's my opinion that this really needs to be done and be done for good and be done with it.
Yeah, I honestly almost cringed the night that this adopted. I can remember it like it was yesterday when all of a sudden the locker room was cut out of the project and it was just some dollars thrown at it for renovation. To me, it just seems that we are not doing ourselves any services and honestly doing ourselves a disservice if we come up with the only 27 meter dive platform in this hemisphere and then forget to put in a locker room. And it just seems as though those priorities at some point got conflicted. What I can also say is that I don't anticipate that we're going to come back and do round 3 here, coming back to the board. I think we've honed in the numbers well enough now that we know what the exposure is. We obviously still have to deal with the other unsolicited proposals, but those are unsolicited proposal, but that comes with a different funding strategy. So hopefully that answered your question.
So let me ask you one more question, Chris. So you'll be before us this evening to ask for the $3.5 million then?
That is the request, yes. And based upon either a favorable or not favorable recommendation from this board, I will schedule it for presentation to the City Commission at some point in the future.
Look, I think this is a no-brainer. You can't build a facility and not have new locker rooms and have world-class athletes show up and be in that south building. So I'll make a motion to approve the request.
And I second it.
All in favor of moving forward, or do we have any more discussion on this?
We need to have discussion.
Let's have some discussion.
Yeah, I had my hand up too.
Caleb, take a look at that hand raise thing on the on your thing. You've got people in line to talk.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I didn't see there any more comments out there. I apologize. I jumped on it. I still hold true. How are we going to invite world-class athletes to come to our facility and put them in those old locker rooms? Should have never been excluded the original programming. All they'll do is leave and say how junky the locker rooms are. So, but that's my 2 cents. I apologize. I thought nobody else had more comments. We can't see.
Well, on that point, Greg, I mean, I want to, piggyback off Mary. I grew up here and I swam in that pool too. And I know that this has been long overdue for the Swimming Hall of Fame. And I know it's been an ongoing problem for the city to get it. I don't understand how the budgeting somehow fell in our lap here. And, I want to see it done and I want to see it done right. But I just, it's already, over budget and it looks like it's going to be, behind schedule. These are the types of things that frustrate people and make it difficult to get these. I also want to see, the world-class 27-meter dive. I was a diver in high school. I did a lot of laps in that pool and I want to see it come too. But I just feel like putting a vote to this at the moment, it definitely warrants some discussion. I don't understand how the city couldn't have, with all the problems that evolved to where, we finally broke ground and we're underway. And now all of a sudden, they're coming to the parks bond to look for money is, I find that a little disturbing personally. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic here.
Carrie, you got your hand up?
Yes. So I do agree that it has to be done. I mean, like Greg and Deborah and Mary said, it has to be done. And like Chris said, it has to be done. I don't know that I'm sold that we are the best or only source of funding this. When we get to new business, I'm going to make a motion that we put together a tracking sheet because while I guess there is some sort of quote unquote extra money in the bond, I don't know how much it is. And we need to be cognizant that when that bond was passed, people were told like, here's what we intend to spend it on. Like Chris said, you don't have to spend on that, but expectations were set. And when we pull $10 million out and spend it on this, that $10 million has to come from somewhere. Now, maybe like Chris said, it comes from other projects coming under budget, but maybe not. And we need to be cognizant that when we pull $10 million out, that might be coming from some other park that people were expecting would get a certain level of enhancement that the money just won't be there to do. And two, you have like just this fundamental structural issue with the bond and all of this, and it's nobody's fault, but if you think about it, all of us on this board, all of this current commissioners, all of the current staff, we all have a vested interest in just spending every dime of this in the next 10 years. Because why wouldn't we, right? Like if I vote against this, I might have angry people who who aren't happy with me that did that. I might have angry commissioners. Any commissioner who opposes something like this might have an angry backlash, because none of us are going to be here in 10 or 15 years, on these boards or maybe still staff, and certainly not still commissioners. But this bond is supposed to last 30 years. There's no one looking out for the commissioners and the residents 20 years from now and what they're going to need.
Hey, Carrie, let me chime in real quick. Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. It's my understanding that the city budgeted $7 million for this, so we're not going to be on the hook for the full 10.
We gave that $7 million already. No, we already gave $7 million for this that was never meant to. So it's going to be a full 10. I get what you're saying, Alex, but no, they came to us once and said, we want to do this and this and this, and I voted against it, but I got shot down, whatever. That's the story of my life on this board. And we already gave them 7. Now they're coming back and saying we gave them 7.5. Now they're coming back saying we're at 3.5. Greg and Deborah never was right. We have to do it. You can't build a world-class facility and have this junky thing. But I do think we have this fundamental problem that this will just keep happening. I mean, when whoever's working on Holiday Park, and I love Holiday Park, that's my pet project. Of course, they're going to come in with unsolicited bids and say, hey, you're spending 20 million on this. Let's throw another 10 at this. And of course, we're going to want to do it, because why wouldn't we? But we have nothing in place right now to force us to think about where that money's coming from. And so when we get to new business, I'm going to make a motion that we put together some sort of tracking. So at least we're cognizant that when we pull money out, that we're having to look at the fact it will come from something. But for right now, I want to say that, yes, we have to do this. I don't know. I'm not convinced that it has to come from us. And so to that point, I wanted to ask Chris, one, I'm sorry if this is a dumb question. I'm just totally off base. Sorry if I am. But does this generate revenue such that you could do a revenue bond to pay for this? And two, what all is this building? Like, there was discussion about it was like $790,000 for additional programming space. It's being referred to as a locker room. What programming? I mean, you're talking about like to have birthday parties or to have like meetings? Like what is this besides a locker room? Like, does it have to be $3.5 million? I mean, yes, you need a world-class locker room that's clean and safe and all of that stuff. But what's that second level where all that glass is? What is that? And why do we need millions of dollars from the Parks bond to pay for it?
Yeah, so let me see if I can take a stab at that. So let me answer your first question first, and that this is not eligible for any type of revenue bonding. So that would not be a revenue source. Number two, we refer to it as a locker room because it largely is a locker room and shower facility. This building, like our current building, also has a gym for athletes to work out in, has rooms upstairs that are the timing rooms and the office spaces that actually oversee the pool itself when it's in a competition mode. When you look at the price of the building and you look at what it costs to frame in a second floor to add those things, those aren't the cost drivers in a construction project like this. I've asked to have it, scaled down to 1 story. I've asked to shrink it. I looked at some colleges around the United States that have put in locker rooms at aquatic centers and said, how can they do it for $8 million and it takes us 10.5? And we've sliced and diced and looked at that as much as we can. With the existing budget for that project and the dollars that have been approved for it, we would likely get the underground work done and probably the shell of a building. But that would at least cause us not to have to worry about construction at some point in the future. But I just think the expectation when we open up a world-class facility is that we have done better than a renovated bathroom. But that's what's up top. It's all the stuff that runs the complex during a competition.
Well, Chris, trying to solve the problem of the money, which obviously, coming out of the Parks bond is the big issue here. Trying to look down the road, obviously we want to try and get this fixed up right, but is it an option with the city to figure out a way that, whatever tools and resources were used in the past to fix up our parks, if there's a way that we can guarantee that it's set in the budget for some of that money to go back into parks later on, even if if it's money that you're looking for that's unsolicited money in our parks bond, is there a way that we can just figure out a way with the city commission to guarantee some of that money goes back to parks later on?
We can certainly have that discussion with the commission. They obviously set priorities. They budget every year. We've done some pretty fantastic things with our budget these last couple of years because of the non-traditional world we're living in. And so I could see that the commission could go for something like that in the future, and would happily bring that to them. I'll just remind the group that this project has been decades in the making and has been budgeted for different ways during different times. And at one point it was budgeted or programmed or financed to a program versus financed to a budget. And all of a sudden it swapped at one point and
how do I get my
build it and do a cost not to exceed. And then the policy setters changed again and the pendulum swung a little bit differently and said, okay, now build it, but now we want to make sure that we figure out how to do more than just the pool. So I'm the first one to sit here and tell you that this has been a roller coaster. And this is not the way you do capital projects. It's the way this capital project, unfortunately, has been done, and I can't change the past. But very good comments, and agree with most of them, probably all of them, that this was truly non-traditional, but we are where we are today.
Hi, this is Steffi. If I could comment, I've had my hand up for a while. I really think there'll be a lot of backlash. We have a contract with our residents that the money for the park bond was for the parks. And if you notice, we have a history, the city of Fort Lauderdale, of having a budget and then using the money for something else. I promise you, this is my first day here, that it will be more than the 3 million. Because it has been, and I'm totally against it. And there's got to be money found somewhere else. I also just have a question. I want to make sure I understood. It sounds like there's no revenue that will be produced from this building. Is that correct? And thank you for letting me comment.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that there's no revenue that's going to be received from this complex, but when we start to talk about revenue bonding and directly tying it to a locker room facility, I don't see, at least initially, I don't see how that facility, if that's what was going to be funded with a revenue bond, I don't see how that would how that would play out, and that there would be revenue sufficient to back that type of bonding.
Charlie, you've had your hand up for quite some time. Charlie, is your hand up?
Sorry, it's been up so long, I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, all right. To me, this is a park. It's an aquatic park, so I think that it does fall under the Parks and Recs. I think this design is great. I like the look. I'll call it a cruise ship look, if you will. I think they've done a great job of incorporating this locker room building into the overall design. I agree with most of the people that it has to be done at this particular point in time. When you consider the site constraints, trying to do all this work in this little tiny site, makes sense to do this all at once. And to me, this place should open when the entire site is complete, done, finished, and you can open the place as a grand opening and avoid any liability issues with having people on the site when construction is going on. That's my take. Thank you.
I'd like to add one other thing is that, and Chris, I think this reiterates what you had said earlier, and that is the dive tower should not have taken should have taken first as far as the entire facility. The entire facility itself should have been part of the main project. And then once that was put together, then the dive tower should have been considered. The dive tower should have never taken precedence. But I will say that I still stand by my second on approving the funds.
All right. Do we have any more comments?
Caleb, I have one other thing to add.
Go ahead.
So, I want to kind of tack onto it. I thought Steffi really hit the nail on the head of what I was trying to say earlier when I said that there was a list of projects that was attached, and that's people, and we set expectations. Stephanie said there was a contract with the voters. That hits the nail on the head. That's what it was. Not legally binding, obviously, but that's the expectation of what we would spend the money on. And I want to come back to something, and that is, let's don't forget, there is an event facility on this property that was built with part of the money that the city allocated, and that event facility will be rented out and generate revenue. It was built to host corporate events, fundraisers, corporate parties, whatever. And it was built with the money that was allocated to this project, so that, and then the things that the residents will use, well, then that's what's been coming back and asking for parks bond money on. You could have just not built an event center and built the things that the residents would actually use. And then if an event center is warranted such that having events there that will pay for the construction of an event center, then you fund the event center either with a revenue bond, or you just say, look, it's an investment. We're going to spend $3 million to build an event center, and over 5 years, it'll pay for itself by renting out for events. So I just don't agree that this is what people's expectation of what the parks bond money would be used for. You shouldn't have built an event center. You should have used the money to build what the residents would need, and I guess, what you'd have for competitions. And then if you want to spend extra money on an event center, and that money would be recouped from the events, and that makes sense. But let's don't forget that that money that was spent on the event center, which is a profit generating center, could have been spent on this. And so for that reason, I'm going to vote no. I would be open to voting for part of it, because I still agree it has to be done, and it will be done. Like the commission will find a way to fund this. I don't want the parks bond to become a slush fund, and that is not in any way. I think very highly of every single one of our commissioners. So that's not aspersions. It's too easy to just come to this parks bond for every little thing that falls under parks that needs to be done. And the whole point of an oversight board is to be the people to say, no, we can't, because everyone else has an incentive to just do it, because they have no incentive not to. It's our job to hold the line. So if we wanted, I would fund part of it to in good faith, because it has to be done, but to also send that message to the commission that, like, we're a tough get. If you want extra money from us, we're not just going to sign checks.
Yeah, on that note, I agree. I'm just trying to find solutions here. That was one of the recommendations I was going to have, is to maybe partially fund, the extra stuff that, all the stuff that was needed for a proper aquatic competitive center that was going to be like a world destination is fine, but it seems like there was some extras in there that were not budgeted properly. And I guess, I would like to see it get done, but the parks bond is probably not the best place. Is there a way to partially fund it or scale it down? I mean, is that even an option? Question. Actually,
what I'd like to do is I'd like to rescind my initial second and basically put on the floor that we have to decide on this motion. But what my thinking is that we come up with the half of what they're asking for, and let the city come up with the other half.
I'm sorry. I disagree with that. And I'm a new guy here, and I wasn't here when the decision was made, but I'm with Alex. That building should have been knocked down 30 years ago. It should have been a priority in the project. And if we don't agree to do this now, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, we're going to shut the pool down again to do it, because it's going to have to be done. So now it's a function of funding, right? Where's the money going to come from? This facility has always been a part of the Parks and Recreation Department. It is a park. It's part of our parks. It's different than a green space, passive green space. It's different than a playground for kids, but it is a recreational facility for a large part of our city community. And we've got representatives here, and none of us want to see a subpar locker room facility or dangerous building or incur additional costs and time to do this. So while I don't want us to be the slush fund either, and I wasn't the one here who said we should skip that, I think that the time to do this is now. It is part of our parks responsibility to make sure that this is a world-class facility for our visitors and our citizens. And, you know, Alex, you don't want to walk into that facility and look at that old crappy locker room because it was that way, or the press room upstairs, or the things that we had, and say, you know, we fought the city commission for $1 million, so we didn't get this done. As the Parks Department, it's part of the Parks Department. It's not part of public utilities. It's not part of even public facilities. This is part of our Parks Department. So I'm passionate about saying the Parks Department needs to make sure that this is done right. I'm disappointed that we're working it out halfway through the project, right? But that, you know, that's where it's at. So I disagree. I think this is something that needs to be approved now so that we don't lose 6 months on the process. Next thing you know, it's going to be December of 22 before we're opening the facility. So there you go.
So if I may.
Mary, you've been waiting. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I do agree with Greg that, and again, I'm very prejudiced because I'm a swimmer. I will be swimming in this pool every 5 to 6 days a week, as will thousands of other residents. So I think if you're not a swimmer, you might not realize how many people will use this facility that live here. Right now, we're all spread out in pools all over the city, that's fine. But I think to do it, it's really got to be done right. I heard Chris say there's other ways of finding money for other things. That's on a recording. I want him to note that. I also like Leona. I know you probably guys can't see this, but everybody gets this from Leona. And maybe going forward, I don't know that she could do that right now because we're still in the phase of people making comments on the Parks Bond website. But maybe there's a way of tracking, like, this is what we're going to spend. This is what we've spent. Whoops, everybody, can you hear me? I went away. Okay. And,
we can hear you.
Okay, and
We can hear you, Mary.
if we can track what we're supposed to spend compared to what we have spent, because I am worried about, you know, spending this money. We did extra stuff for Tunnel Top. And so I think we need to get our arms around, like Harry said, a budget where we're on track to spend the money that we said we were. We had about 14 million extra from what I can see, or what the information I have. We still have some of that left or none of that left. I think we need to know that so we can make really informed decisions on these kind of quandaries like this, because this really does have to be done. It'd be stupid to wait till later to do it. To get it done, and don't let this happen again. Okay.
I could respond just to Mary real quick on the notion of available funding from other places. That I said it and I meant it. I don't know that as your manager though it makes a good recommendation. And the reason I say that is because I could, I could quite easily go to our capital plan and abandon seawall work in the next fiscal year. There's like $4.2 million sitting in city-owned seawalls, and we could cut that down to $750,000 and fund this in the near term, and then try to recoup in the seawall work later on down the line. But as your city manager, that to me is not as good a recommendation of going to unrestricted funds and at the detriment of a city-owned seawall to say we have restricted park bond funds, that we shouldn't try that first. So there are multiple ways to do this. This is the way that I would recommend, which is why I'm starting here. And if I have to go other direction, then we'll certainly make a different recommendation to the commission.
Chris, when I mentioned about us coming up with half of the money and then the city coming up with the other half of the money, I think it's because, the reason why I said that is because this should have been part of the main project to begin with, and the reason and the Parks Bond shouldn't suffer because of that mistake. So I think it's abundant that the city at least do it and make a concerted effort to come up with half of the funds, and the Parks Fund come up with the additional half of the funds, and then that way we can get everything done. Again, I don't think that the Parks Fund should suffer because of that error in judgment.
That's a great way to put it. And I just want to add, Chris, it's a little bit of adding fear when you say, hey, well, then we won't do seawall. There might be other line items, because obviously that's going to hit a nerve. So to bring that up, obviously we need that done. That's more important than this development. So I just wanted to.
I took a real hard look at the capital plan. I would invite anybody to do that as well. I bring that one up only because that was the one project that had sufficient dollars in it that it could account for the whole $3.5 million. there is a way absolutely to look at abandoning, 15 to 20 projects that are much smaller, much smaller funding. But that's the only reason I highlighted that one is there was not many lines I could go to that I could just say we wouldn't do X to do Y. Our general fund capital budget is just not that large.
But again, the Parks Fund shouldn't suffer because of an error in judgment.
Chris, how firm are the numbers? I mean, is there any way we can figure out a way to scale it down? I mean, I don't know what the options are here. I'm just, I think I'm in agreement with most of the people here that one, it needs to get done, and two, it ought not to come out of the Parks Fund, at least not fully. I mean, I agree with everyone that's on that we'd be willing to fund half. I would vote for that today. But once again, it's accountability. I mean, this should have all been in the initial planning. I know the city spent a ton of money on surveying and everything else. Right. How is this a surprise? I mean, the whole facility, and not for nothing else, but what about the surrounding marinas? Isn't that maybe a way that we can figure out a way to? Isn't that part of the city as well?
Yeah, it's all the city out there. I'm not sure in what manner we would engage the marinas.
The Swimming Hall of Fame Marina specifically, I thought that was city property. I'm not sure.
It is. We have a long-term lease with the International Swimming Hall of Fame. There's a different unsolicited proposal in to renovate that east and west building. So, and that one's not really one I can talk about yet because it hasn't hit the light of day. It's still being reviewed. But I don't really see those as opportunities. I could look at so let me take you back and let you know that I've asked a lot of those questions about how do we trim it down? How do we make it skinnier? How do we shorten it? Even to the point I was ready to kill it and just said, look, this is the dollars you have. And if you can't build that within that budget, then I guess we're not building anything. I did not get good feedback from the policy setters when I brought that up in conversation. And so I think it is a true statement that we're going to get this built somehow. I just, at this point, we'll assemble funding the best way we can. And I typically try to start with where I think it makes the most sense and then work from there. And that's why we're here.
And just to echo off of what Chris is saying, we have looked at ways to try and slice and dice and trim this thing up without really getting into a lot of the programming for the structure. The one thing and everybody here, thank you for your comments. I think everybody's making a lot of valid points, and we are listening. The one thing I hope I encourage you to listen to as you make your decision tonight is, unfortunately, with construction, the project we're talking about is where we are in live construction now, and delays with constructing this building has day-for-day impacts on our ability to construct the pools. I really want to stress those aerials that we showed with everybody tonight, because they're not just to paint a picture of where we are real time with the project, but also to drive home the point of just the close proximity of what we are trying to build. And while, if that option is that we can look for potential money somewhere else, it may come at the sacrifice of time. And every day that we don't get this built is a day that we don't open the facility. And for folks that have done renovations at their home or other construction projects somewhere else, usually delays also have a cost attributed to them. So again, everybody's making a lot of valid points tonight, and we are listening. I just encourage you to take that into consideration as you make your decision. Any delays here do have a cost implication in our ability to bring this project home in July. It may be a date further out and a higher price tag than a 10.5 million. So just want you to take that into consideration as you collect your thoughts tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of my concerns is delay. I don't think that that any more delays are warranted, only because as Mary said, we're both swimmers. I've been a swimmer. I've got legacy in the family, and we can't wait to get back into this facility. So it's important that this continue to move forward and move forward on the plan on the schedule that is already out there. So whatever we need to do, I think we need to get it done and get it done as quickly as possible.
One of the things I just kept on my phone just to let you know what I'm thinking is if in fact the board is supportive of 50%, if you do some quick math there and say what does that actually mean as far as percentage of increase to the project, that would roughly equate to me needing to find 17% of the value of the total project in park impact fee potentially. And I'd have to then start to work with our folks to see if we could come up with a formula basis by which we thought that the impact or the capacity of this particular locker room increased by 17%, whether that's in square footage or in some other thing that I could get past the city auditor. So there's ways that I would look to continue to do this project without having to get into the general fund before it moved forward. But that's just on the back of the napkin. What saying 50% would do is it would cause us to look into the park impact fee and see if there was the ability to fund the balance with that.
Chris, how long would it take to come up with those kind of numbers as well if we were looking at funding 50% as opposed to the entire thing? And how much of a delay on that timeline would impacts of the city having to take all those considerations into account end up piecing into this project?
Yeah, so when you look at the impact fee, this would be a little bit more difficult than a traditional use of an impact fee, because typically use of impact fee, you go from having nothing to having something. So you all of a sudden have 100% of something that's enhanced or new. This is, a locker room. Renovations do not qualify for impact fee funding. So my initial reaction to this early on was that if we already have a locker room, to have a new locker room doesn't mean we have anything net new. But I could look at it, and again, this is just a big discussion I'd have with our city auditor and our finance director to say, we're this close, but I'm still 17% short on the total project. Can we demonstrate that there's been a 17% increase in impact to the community with the renovation? So I don't know the answer to that. It would take a little while to get everybody comfortable with a formula that we would be comfortable. When we spend those dollars very cautiously, that we'd be good with the formula so that we could defend it if we ever needed to.
Well, I think we've had a lot of good discussion on this and seeing it from the coin from multiple angles. The question really to the board, we all know we need to get this done. The question is, do we move forward with bond funds immediately, strike the pen and make it go forward? Or do we try to see if we can sharpen the pencil and make magic happen? The danger of that continues to be the timeline. And we have suffered through this entire project now. I can remember going on 6 years of old RDC designs. And beyond that, this project has gone up and down and so forth just to break ground.
Kayla, can I ask one quick question? Just one super fast
just a
question.
minute.
Sorry.
I just would hate to see this continue on. And again, as we have a contractor on site, we lose the opportunity to continue forward, move this project forward, complete this project, and then have to go back because inevitably, if it's not done, the public is not going to be happy. Everybody that voted for that bond is not going to be happy. Every user that comes to utilize the facility is not going to be happy. And the thing we've talked about for a decade, a world-class facility, is not going to look like a world-class facility. But I'm absolutely all ears to listen this out.
Caleb, it's been almost 20 years, not 10.
Sorry, I've only been a resident here for 12.
I think we take this as a lesson learned as to how this whole thing transpired for future projects. But I think we take a vote on this and move forward.
We have a motion on the floor.
Chris, can the city borrow money from the bond? Could you borrow this $3.5 million from us and pay it back to us in 10 years?
This is what this money's for. I disagree. Well, whatever. Why would we
say we move forward with a vote?
Let me answer a question though, just real quickly, because I don't know that the bond is not a line of credit to the city, so that becomes a difficult. The bond covenants would probably speak against that. Bond counsel would probably not recommend it. But this isn't intended to be a 30-year bond for the purposes of it taking 30 years to get all the work done. We have the benefit now of having the money in the bank, so the faster we can get the work done in our parks, everybody can start enjoying the benefits of what having a bond does. The 30 years only equates to the fact that that's how long we will service that debt and pay it back. So it would be perfect, in the perfect world, if I could get all the projects done in 7 years, then we have 23 years of enjoyment that we would have, actual use of these parks. We're really not trying to let this be a 30-year project. Cannot be another fire bond where we're in year 19 and we don't have the last fire station built. So we're going to rush as quick as we can to get as much work into these parks as quickly as possible.
Can't we just get a few of these questions?
We have a motion on the floor we've been discussing on quite some time. The reality is do we have any new discussion on this?
I would like to present another motion, Caleb.
You can't do that. There is a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So do we have any more discussion that's new and relevant to this, or can we, as a board, take a vote?
I think Brucey wants to comment. I don't know if she can get through though.
I was just going to suggest, let's at least get a few of these answers, but instead of, I get it, everyone wants to rush and get it done. One of the things also is, do we put it out on your questionnaire out there in the city and see how the residents feel about it? Just putting it out there. I just think we could, if we're going 50%, at least get some of these answers. Carrie brought up some good ideas. What's, a few more weeks at this point? That's all I have.
That's the problem, Steffi. It's not a few more weeks.
Actually, at this point, a few more weeks is actually fairly material.
Can we proceed with the vote on the motion on the floor?
Yes.
He's got to do a second because the second was.
I second it.
Oh, she's back.
Leona,
I want to swim in my own pool.
Okay,
Leona, can we move forward with a
just
vote
to
call?
recap, the motion made by Greg Martin and second by Deborah is in full support of the 3.5 million, correct? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Alex Collazo,
I have to vote no.
Brucey Cummins,
She's on, but I don't think anybody can hear her. But she's
City
on.
moderator, can you check into that for me, please? I'll come back to her name after I run through.
I'm sorry, Brucey, if you could press *6 to unmute, *6 to unmute.
Caleb Gunter,
I vote yes.
Carrie Villeneuve,
I vote no, but if there were a new motion on the floor for 50% funding, that I would vote yes at that point. But right now I vote no.
Charlie Lykoff, Charlie Lykoff,
Yes, I vote yes.
Darren Heitner,
I vote yes.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Gail Butler,
But she stepped away.
Gail Butler,
She come back to her. It looks like she stepped away.
Greg Martin,
I vote yes.
Joanne Smith,
I vote yes.
Mariana Seiler,
I vote yes.
Mary Pelican,
I vote yes.
Robert Payne, Robert Payne,
Trying to unmute himself.
Pascal,
I vote no.
Tangerine Moore,
I vote yes, and hoping it's not going to affect the impact of the other district projects.
This is Payne. Did you get my vote?
no, what is your vote, sir?
I approve. As long as you don't mess with District 3 monies, I'll approve.
Gail Butler. Gail Butler. And Brucey Cummins.
Brucey, if you could please press *6 to unmute.
Moderator, I
*6.
think she said that wasn't working, so I'm not sure.
Can you move her
Besides
over?
that, I have sufficient to pass the motion.
Can you, moderator, can you move her over to being a panelist so she can unmute?
She's on the phone, so we have no capability of moving her over.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
You do have a quorum based on that count, so the motion carries.
Leona, could you say what the yes and no is, just for the record?
I have 9 yeses, 3 noes. Sorry, 4 noes and 1 unaccounted for.
And I would also like to go on the record that I'm a little disappointed that the motion was on the floor before we really had a discussion here and, try to figure out proper terms to figure out a proper solution for this. So I want that noted in the minutes, please.
And you can add my name, Steffi.
Duly noted.
Thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate the work you do. And as much as I'd like to stick with you, I've got to go back to Budget Advisory Board. So you all have a great rest of your evening and discussion. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
All right. Carl, you said that we were going to try and switch up item 4 with item 2. Is that your intention?
Yes. So, yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, our previous chair last meeting was last month. And so as part of procedure from the last meeting, it was requested that we come forward as an agenda item for this particular meeting. Therefore, we will need to identify a new chair for our board and which will need a vote as well. So I open the floor up at this time to start that discussion.
I nominate Caleb.
I second that motion. Alex.
Can we nominate someone else at this point?
I'd like to nominate Silas.
Okay, wait, I think we'll have to go through those motions one by one. So if there's a motion for one representative and somebody seconds it, we have to do a vote on that. If it doesn't carries, then the next person can make another motion for somebody else. So the first motion on the floor, who made the nomination?
Charlie Lykoff.
And the person you nominate was?
Caleb Gunter.
Okay, and who seconded that?
Alex Collazo.
Okay, so I'll go to the vote for that.
Hello. Leona, can I ask a question, please? I'm sorry. I might be out of order. Can I ask a question?
Oh, go ahead.
Before the motion was second, shouldn't have been said, are there any more nominations?
You could do it that way as well.
Yeah, because it was too quickly done. As soon as someone nominated Caleb in, someone came and said second before anyone can nominate anybody else.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should have multiple options here if it's a vote for.
Can we email a vote in or something? I mean, what's the best way to do this?
I think before when we did Karen and Caleb, what we did was we had all the nominations and then voted, right?
Yes. So what we can do at this point is we know we have one nomination, which is Caleb. Now, are there any other nominations that should be considered?
Yes, I would like to nominate Deborah Rosenbaum.
Do we have another nomination on the board? I see Ms. Butler's hands raised. Ms. Butler,
you're muted, Gil. Unmute Gail.
Ms. Butler, you're muted.
Hold down your space bar. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to nominate Debbie Rosenbaum for president.
I'll second that.
All right, so we currently have our current vice chair, Caleb, and Mrs. Rosenbaum as nominations. Are there any others? Okay. Leona, I guess at this point we go to a vote.
Okay, so for the motion to have Caleb as chair, I'm gonna go to the roll call. Alex Collazo,
Yes, I'm gonna vote for Caleb. Are we voting for individuals or Caleb?
well, this motion is for Caleb. If
So
that-
yay, I vote yay.
Brucey Cummins. Brucey, you're muted. Caleb Gunter,
Yay.
Carrie Villeneuve,
Leona, am I allowed to abstain? I mean, I think they'd both do a great job. I honestly don't have a strong preference. They'd both be great.
no, you can't really.
I'm not allowed to abstain?
No.
Yes.
Remember, we also need a vice chair.
Do we, as I said, do we dare make
vice chair too?
Yeah, if the vice chair becomes chairman and Deborah becomes vice chair, I think I'd be real happy with that. I don't know how everybody else feels about it. And Robert,
Keep the vote going here, though.
Carrie Villeneuve,
we got to vote. All right.
Yes, he served as vice chair. Sure. He's our
Charlie Lykoff,
Yes.
Darren Heitner,
I vote yes.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
I guess I'll have to vote yes.
Gail Butler,
Well, Debbie, if you're voting yes, I guess I have to vote yes.
Well, I mean, it's just a landslide here, so.
Okay.
Greg Martin,
Yes.
Joanne Smith, Joanne Smith, Joanne, you're muted.
She's here.
Mariana Seiler,
I vote yes.
Joanne, your vote?
Yes.
Okay. Mary Pelican,
No, not Bez Caleb, but I nominated Deborah, so I want to vote yes. I mean, no.
Robert Payne,
No.
Steffi Pascal,
Yes.
Tangerine Moore.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Brucey.
Yes, Caleb.
Okay.
I would like to nominate Deborah Rosenbaum for vice chair.
Okay. Go to the roll call for vice chair.
Second.
The motion carried on the last nomination, by the way. So for vice chair, somebody made a nomination?
Mariana nominated Deborah.
I second it.
Okay, I'll go to the roll call. Alex Collazo,
Yes, for vice president.
Brucey Cummins,
Yes.
Caleb Gunter,
Yes.
Carrie Villeneuve,
Yes.
Charlie Lykoff,
Yes.
Darren Heitner,
Yes.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Gail Butler,
Yes.
Greg Martin, Greg Martin,
Yes, sorry.
Joanne Smith. You're muted, Joanne.
Yes.
Mariana Seiler,
Yes.
Mary Pelican,
Yes.
Robert Payne,
Yes.
Steffi Pascal,
Yes.
and Tangerine Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries. So your new vice chair.
All right, Carl, are we going back to item number 3 now on the agenda?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So Ms. Glassman, you're up.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been very enjoyable watching the Parks Board, and I would like to thank you for having me here, Carl, and I see Phil. And the presentation that I was going to make today, because of time, would like to just overview it. But prior to that, even more important, if you had an opportunity to go through, is just to give you a little bit of history about myself so that you know, in this capacity as the appointed Fort Lauderdale Beach Open Spaces Coordinator, overseeing the marketing, branding, and programming for the three, and will be shortly 4 beautiful new parks on Fort Lauderdale Beach. I just want to say that I'm absolutely thrilled with this contract. I have been working with the City of Fort Lauderdale's Beach Improvement District for the last 8 years, overseeing the marketing for Fort Lauderdale Beach through the My Fort Lauderdale Beach website and on their behalf. For the last 6 years, I have been producing the Friday Night Soundwaves concert series on Fort Lauderdale Beach, originally at our little hub, moved over to Los Olas Oceanside in 2020. And then together through my appointments on the Chambers Beach Council Board, have also done a number of events through my role as the marketing chair on their committee too. I have a true love for Fort Lauderdale Beach, and now I'm so excited that I get to love the whole city of Fort Lauderdale and all of the residents and people that visit here and make an impact with these new spaces that you helped bring to life. So if I could take just a minute, Leona, is it okay if I share my screen at this time?
Yes, City Moderator, can you have her share her screen, please?
Yes.
And is that up? Is
Yes.
that good for everyone? Wonderful. So one of the things that we developed when we were looking at how to market the 4 spaces was to make this a really friendly destination. When we moved our concert series over to Los Olas Oceanside Park, just strictly from a marketing perspective, I called it the Loop, Los Olas Oceanside Park. It was very long to put into a little tiny ad if we were going to do it. But what we realized once we did that is, if we're looking at all of these parks as one big system on the beach, that it really does create a loop at this intersection between the Oceanside Intercoastal Promenade, the garage, and where DC Alexander in its new incarnation will be too. So we developed a logo, we developed a tagline. We looked at this from a wayfinding perspective of letting everyone know where we are and making these 4 individual spaces feel very connected and connected with the community. We view, and I say we because I do have a team and that I've worked on with this, is that these parks are our central park. This is, especially for the Barrier Island, I've always used the little slogan, the beach is your backyard, for the city of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, and all of South Florida to enjoy. And so we aim to tie this all together in this manner. Just some fun designs that we're looking to do with advertising and a quick run through of our programming pillars, which as we go through, and I won't take time for every single one of the events we're planning, but to let the board know that we're working on a basis with an acronym called FAME. And every event, every experience that will take place at these 4 parks will fit into one of these models or a combination of these models, to where we're attracting families, active adults, millennials, and we use the term everyone because we're such a multicultural, multi-generational spot. We want activities that really focus in on what the city of Fort Lauderdale is best known for and what people enjoy. And we certainly want them to get the emotional quality of what I have been blessed to have the firsthand knowledge of, that we're just we're fun, we're approachable, we're very authentic. We are entertaining and very easygoing as both a city, in a county, in a region. But more so, that's how people feel when they're around, and what our locals and residents express to our visitors, and how our visitors like to interpret that. So I hope you did have a chance to go through some of these programming things. We have started to kick them off. Our farmers market, which we launched in January of 2020, actually, along with our longstanding Friday Night Soundwave series at the park. The farmers market was able to return in November very successfully. We have a lot of programming that is going to be complementing it with a new series that is being funded by our Beach Improvement District called More at the Market. And I'll direct you to our website where you can learn about that. We're also planning some smaller events that will take place that are very family centric and really very inclusive of everyone. There are 4 major events that we are looking to grow over the next 3 years. This past Sunday was our first, called Fur the Love Pet Fest. It was wildly successful. I'll send Carl the link to the photos. You can check out all the cuteness, but very safe, very secure. People had a wonderful time. Very committed in bringing these activities back to the city, that we are doing this in a very respectful, responsible manner, and look to have the events that are done in the city of Fort Lauderdale and at these new spaces on the beach be the model of how events can be run. We have a kite festival that we're working on, very excited about that, for the month of May, that will tie in with the Fort Lauderdale Air Show as a lead-in weekend. We're partnering with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance and Broward County Schools on that program. And because health and fitness, and I've heard you talk about the aquatic center and swimming, but we're a very healthy community. And we've got this beautiful natural pathway along our beaches. We're putting a big emphasis on health and wellness, and looking to also launch a new annual event with a health and wellness family day. I bring that up specifically because I've had a long-standing relationship with an organization in town called Flippany, last 15 years actually, since they started. And Flippany and I, as a partner with the city of Fort Lauderdale and our fitness programs, have formed a fiduciary partnership, meaning that as a nonprofit, we are able to seek funding through various sponsors to where the dollars can be donated through Flippany, and Flippany then can implement programming for this. I'm very happy to announce we have raised just under $30,000 within the last 2 months from American Express, from Target, And from Ocean Spray, we have other proposals out on the table. But what this affords us to do is offer free fitness classes to the community. And I'm going to kind of drop that and bring up our website so you can see where that is. We were absolutely in love with the amenity deck at the parking garage. A number of our fitness programs, which has grown from 2 to 7, will now be 12 by the beginning of March. And we're utilizing this rooftop amenity deck for that. It is working out wonderfully. We're also planning to do some children's programming there. And the fitness program that we've started, it's called Loop Fit. Our slogan is Live Optimal, Own Possible. And we want to really empower our community to get out there and participate in our programs. Marketing, truthfully, I'll pop up our website really quickly for a few minutes. I did do prior to starting, when the contract announcement came through in June, I had asked Phil and Carolyn if I might be able to start working on this project, even though I wasn't under contract yet. And they said, sure. You know, it takes a long time to put things together so that we could come out of the box running. And that was, you know, where to be, not knowing where we would be as a city and county with the situations. So we ran surveys with the public, both locals, visitors, and really came up with the concept of we are not very different here in the city of Fort Lauderdale than we are within all of Broward County. We're not different than the visitors that come into the city. And if we can program things that are enjoyed by our residents here, we certainly can provide really unique and, as we're saying, infinite experiences for everyone under the sun, that when they visit Fort Lauderdale, whether they live here year round, they're visiting here for a period of time, or the past part-timers, we can create some unique programming. Do I have a couple more minutes, or how am I on time? Am I okay on time?
You're fine.
Yes. Should I ask if there were any quick questions with that, or just continue through? Go through. Okay. So
we lost your screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant to share my new screen, which is this. How are we on this? Do I have my new screen up?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I would love to welcome everybody. If you want to jot it down, it's pretty simple. It's The Loop, L-O-O-P. F is in Fort, L is in Lauderdale, and then the B is in Beach, because that's where our beautiful parks are. We just launched our new website for the park system, as we're calling it. You can go on to that. Please look around. We tried to make this very friendly. It's mobile compatible, but very simple to use, not a lot of navigation. The thing that I'd really like to touch on right now, that is where we're going big with, is our fitness program, especially since I touched on these partnerships and the significant funding that we've been able to secure. These are some of our fitness programs. They're very varied. We have everything from kettlebell to yoga to HIIT classes. But one thing that both Ocean Spray is sponsoring, starting on March 9th, which is a Tuesday, we have an 8-week free to the public, up to 40 participants a week can go. It's a free walking group that is being led by a breathwork specialist, followed by, after the walk, a short yoga stretch session. So we know that the residents love walking the beach on Fort Lauderdale Beach in the mornings. We wanted to include something that, you know, could just take that and make that an even greater experience, bring people together, give them a good social time as well out of their normal morning walks. And also being sponsored by Ocean Spray, we have a Monday evening class called In Motion, which is again free to the public to participate. It is going to be a 12-week challenge, and it's a cardio hit. It's 45 minutes, so you can sign up. Very easy to do. Each one of the pages gives you a little bit of information about it, the class registration, and you just sign up. One thing I do want to point out to the board is a lot of these instructors were utilizing city spaces as their offices. And I had a conversation with Carl, I had a conversation with Carolyn, and what we've done is we've identified the instructors that have been doing business basically on Fort Lauderdale Beach's parks, and invited them to be part of this program. In doing such, we have conducted background searches on everyone. We have done, we have obtained insurance policies from them, insuring the city of Fort Lauderdale. We've put them into a program to where we know when they're going to be there, why they're going to be there, so that if anyone comes out, they're recognized. And the city staff and the garage security staff are all given schedules. So we're also providing some accountability of who is utilizing these public-owned city parks, you know, to operate on and provide services. We are not charging anyone to do this. We are asking them once a month to provide a free class to the public. And that also goes into American Express, what they are sponsoring, which is called Express Yourself. We are giving the public an opportunity to register. We'll have 5 free classes a month that they can go and register to try a new fitness program and find something that they, you know, really enjoy to do. The last partner would be Target, and Target is targeting our children. Friday Night Soundwaves, our concert series, were slated to come back on March 19th, which is the Friday. And in conjunction with Friday Night Soundwaves, we get a lot of parents that come down with their children early on in the day. Target is going to fill the gap between out of school time and our concert times with providing 2 hours of a free group moderated playtime for kids that is going to be implemented by Flippiny's professional fitness instructors. Ocean Spray is going to be out there physically along with Target, providing gift cards and healthy drinks and snacks so that we can, you know, feed our kids some good food and really create some good quality time for families to be together, you know, on a Friday evening. So, you know, please go through the website. Again, it's really very simple. We've got all the information about our farmers market, the different things that are taking place there. Every Saturday is going to have a new More at the Market feature, where our first Saturdays are going to focus around our businesses, our communities, and also the arts, live music. Our second Saturday, Flippany will be doing healthy cooking and nutrition demonstrations, both geared towards seniors and children. Our third Saturday, we've partnered with the city's beach sweep, and we will be doing trash to treasure art exhibits and interactive art experiences. And starting this Saturday, another program that we are doing to bring awareness to the space is we've partnered with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Food and Wine Festival and Visit Lauderdale on bringing out different, we'll call them our local celebrity chefs from all over the city that will be filming live. They'll shop at the market. They will buy their fresh produce, their fresh foods, and then they will be doing a cooking demonstration. This will be broadcast live. This will also be taped and pushed out through our Convention and Visitors Bureau, promoting our parks along with the beaches. And I think that's it. I could go on forever. I am so in love with doing this. And I'm so happy to be working for all of you and this bringing some, great things to these beautiful spaces. Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Ari.
just want to say that this is awesome. I went to the farmer's market not long ago and it was really cool. And so I've started looking at all the events you have there. So great job.
Thank you, Marianne.
Any way we could distribute the website to the board?
Oh, me? Oh, yeah. Of course. It's also, if you just jot it down, it's theloopflb.com. We do have our social pages up too. There's a Facebook page, there's an Instagram page, all under the same moniker. Our hashtag is Stay in the Loop. And we've been using that, again, back 2020 when we moved our concert series over there, but it takes on a bigger meaning now. Las Olas Oceanside Park obviously is this cornerstone to the whole project, but we wanted to take that and expand it out. So our vision of the loop is now all of these park spaces, and in creating this system, these beautiful things that all intertwine and work well with one another. I would encourage you as well. We do have a newsletter that goes out, and we do have our survey is still up and running. I don't know where it is, but it is here. I'll find that and send the link to. We're still gathering information. We're still in a phase where, although we have the plan, we're cognizant that we can still move and morph as more feedback comes in. So the feedback is really important. I speak with the Central Beach Alliance at least once, if not twice a month, offline, not at their board meetings, but I sit on their board meetings to hear from the local residents. And, this is your park. These are all your parks. So as much input as we can work into it as possible as we're moving forward, definitely have those ears open and want to bring things that will be enjoyable for everybody.
All right, thank you, Ari.
You're welcome, Carl. Thank you so much for having me. And I can send that, and I can resend out the presentation. I'll find the survey, to send out. On another quick note, I just noticed my Unpaved Paradise. I've been asked to write for Las Olas Boulevard in the Isles magazine, which is the neighborhood magazine that goes out. George Mihai produces. I write a column all about the loop every bi-monthly. It comes out. So this is the very first column that came out was Unpaved Paradise. And then the one that it will be appearing in the March is all about our fitness programs. So just another way to bring some recognition, to these spaces and everything that the city's done and worked on, in creating this.
Thank you, Arian.
Hey, this is Steffi. Just want to make a comment. I'm president of Victoria Park Civic Association. Would love if you wanted to also put an article in our magazine or every other month. Feel free to reach out.
I appreciate that very much. I know that George has been reaching out, and the civic associations are so important. John Burns had actually made.
Ari, I think we lost you.
Looks like she's frozen, Carl.
Okay. All right, I guess I'll touch base with her and see if there's anything that she would like to get to the board. Okay, Caleb?
I was wondering if this link is available from the city parks and rec on the city website, or is this a whole separate website people have to go to?
Yeah, it's a separate website, but I believe we may have something. But I
Just
believe
did 4 searches for it. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, can we link it with the city website?
There needs to be a link on the city website to this in addition to their own, but we need to have a link on the city website. That's where I would go to look for it. I wouldn't go looking all over for something else.
It's only popping up on Instagram and Facebook, but there's no link to the website. So definitely throw in a link to the board if you can.
Okay. Yeah, I emailed a link for it to Leona to send out while she was presenting. It's outstanding from what I'm seeing. It's hitting on a lot of the pillars of National Recreation Parks Association, Florida Recreation Parks Association, and things that we love in this community. So I think it's a great thing. Any other comments on it?
Sounds good to me.
Carl, you're up next with your department update, I believe.
Yes, I'll be brief. I just want to inform the board that we do have our youth camps, in particularly our spring camp that will start March 22nd. We have a few sites that will be providing that service, of course, on a much smaller registration level that we've had in the past due to our current COVID protocols. As a reminder, I know our earlier conversation, we were discussing the Parks Bond. Please note that, this month is Public Engagement Month through our program manager. And so we have a few more days left for more of that open forum to be available for comment and inclusion to engage our community here and get some feedback. Thus far, based on where we are, we've been getting a pretty good turnout as far as feedback. A lot of it's been consistent with a lot of the parts, some of the needs and wants, and our program manager will continue to sift through those comments, and when they've all been reviewed, those will be shared as well.
I lost my internet. This is Ari. I'll mute my line, but I didn't want anyone to think that I just cut you off intentionally.
No, thanks, Ari. We got you.
Okay. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thanks, Ari. And lastly, we have our art exhibit, which is taking place at Southside. It'll go through now and through May. We've got artists that have their art displayed throughout the first floor of Southside. So if you have some free time and you want to view some art, please come on by and check that out.
It's at City Hall?
Oh, that's at Southside Cultural Arts Center.
Gotcha.
And as I kind of complete my department report, I want to also note that we do have a couple new members, and I would like for them to introduce themselves, if that's okay with our chair.
Absolutely. That was one of the things Karen emailed me on her way out. I believe there's 2 that I see she listed.
All right, I guess we probably start with Mr. Martin. I know we missed you last meeting, but welcome.
Thank you. Obviously, I feel like I've already made too big of an impact, but look, I'm very honored to be a part of this group. What I want to let you guys know is in 1991 and 1992, I worked for the Parks Department. I ran the Special Events Department. Mr. Bob Payne and I were co-workers back then. So spent some time at Carter Park. Then it was called Sunland Park. But I'm passionate about the parks. Great cities have great parks. And since then, with my family, whether it's been in the recreational programs at Holiday Park or on the beach, I do that. I'm now in the commercial real estate business. And so I'm involved with some of the development that'll be happening in town and do all that. But I really look forward to being a part of this. And I think there's a great opportunity to continue to build and maintain some of the just the great parks, the great recreational programs that we have, and the great beach programs that are going on. So I'm honored to be here. And I'm sure we'll learn as we go on some things when things happen. So thank you all very much. It's my deal.
Welcome to the board, Greg.
Thanks, Alex.
Hi there. I'm not a stranger now. I spoke up tonight. I love Fort Lauderdale. I love where I live, which is in Victoria Park. It's so centered to everything. I vacationed here off and on for years when I just needed to get away and I wanted some sunshine, and I had a goal of living here. And once I moved here, which will be 3 years, actually almost 4 years this summer, I couldn't be more in love, seriously. And I've lived in different places. And the more I got more involved and I started getting involved in playing tennis and getting involved in just the parks, I realized I don't want to sit on the sidelines, and I want this whole area to just develop and stay beautiful and keep its charm and grow in the way it should. So I'm completely passionate about it, if you couldn't tell. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a sales consultant. I work with small, medium companies, helping them grow their businesses. So I'm also passionate about businesses thriving. So anyway, thank you so much for having me on board, and I'm really excited to get to know everyone better. And I appreciate the introduction.
Welcome to the board, Steph.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Where did you move from?
Great question. I grew up in New Jersey. I moved to Maryland for most of my adulthood, and then I just packed up. I moved back to Jersey again. I said, why am I doing this? I stayed there 3 years, and one more winter, I couldn't take it. So here I am. I don't know if anyone else is from Jersey on the board, or am I the only Jersey girl? I think I am. Well, don't hold it against me. We're really nice people.
I have to second that. I married one.
Oh, I love you. That's awesome.
All right. Was that everybody new, Carl?
I believe so.
Can I ask a question on the department updates, or is that for later?
No, go ahead.
So I know how we still have it open to comment, but I've been playing, so I play tennis a few times a week at George English, and a lot of people have been saying to me, you know, we're losing these tennis courts to pickleball. I thought that hadn't been determined yet.
You would be correct. So the pickleball discussion is solely at the hockey rink pad is where the discussion, pickleball, not the actual tennis court. So there's been discussion, you know.
At George English though.
Yes. Okay. So there's been discussion for those courts, but that's mainly been pushed by many of the pickleball enthusiasts that we have.
Not the city, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I would advise that you tell your tennis coaches to stop telling people that.
Okay.
Just as an aside. And if they want to say it, say you can put your input in to keep these tennis courts, but don't say the city already determined these are pickleball courts, try to make them tennis courts again. Because then people are in an uproar that they didn't know they were being turned into tennis courts when really, or into pickleball courts when really that wasn't decided. Does that make sense?
It does. And I want to say maybe last week I may have heard that for the first time, but yeah, the only discussion that I'm aware of has been the little concrete pad where we were originally going to put some pickleball courts, but then we halted because of the bond, and we had some thoughts that there was some activity there. But you know, I guess we'll see kind of what the outreach engagement portion of the bond says, and if it does, then I think we'll be able to move forward with the concrete pad, but not on the existing tennis courts.
Well, I'll just keep reiterating that it hasn't been decided yet, and to make sure to put their public comment in.
And I'll make sure I share it with our tennis staff that as well, because I certainly don't want us carrying bad information.
Thanks, Carl.
Anytime.
And not for nothing, but on that point, I know we had discussed the pickleball at George English Park, and I think that the general consensus was that, you know, we agreed that it probably could use a pickleball court or two. But, I grew up right next to George English Park and spent a lot of time there. And I bring my kid there all the time. And all I see is kids on that pad that are learning how to skateboard and ride their bikes and rollerblade and do all that little stuff that you just don't want your kid doing out in the street. So, I know that it was originally built as some kind of like a roller hockey pad or something like that, but it doesn't go unused. It's not a pad that is neglected or doesn't go unused. So if there's a discussion to be had, maybe that's something we should put on an agenda, Caleb, for a future discussion about a pickleball court at George English Park.
Yeah, that actually was the reason why we halted the project, was because there was some thought that there was a lot of activity on the pad. And so we wanted to have that be a part of the public engagement portion of the bond. And so once the program manager reviews that information, we'll have a better idea of kind of how to proceed with that particular pad.
I just want to say, I put out a communication piece today from the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations about there being 3.5 days left to make your comments known on the parks bond. Done a similar thing twice here in Coral Ridge. It's really interesting to hear. I mean, so since I send it out, I get people that ask me questions, and I'm always shocked at how many people want a skate park. And yeah, I'm not a skater and I'm not a pickleball player, so I don't have anything in that. But it's almost if you take a look at the comments for George English, it's almost neck and neck, skate park and pickleball. I think the pickleball lobbyists haven't really focused on George English, but it is interesting to get questions from people. I've often heard the same thing that Mary Ann said about people are up in arms over the tennis courts becoming pickleball courts, and squash that every time I hear it. So there is some rumor going around out there. I don't know where it came from, but it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what these consultants come back with, because it looks kind of neck and neck to me.
Also,
Yeah,
everybody, the Parks Bond tracker is on the website, like the ftlparksproject.com. I know we had all asked for the tracker. It's on the website, and it's, I think, up to date, right, Carl?
Yes.
Carl, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Carl?
Hey, Brucey.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I was down at the farmer's market last weekend on the beach, and there were a ton of people. It was a great showing. And I could only find one trash bin, and it was completely full to spilling over. I called the city to let them know, but I don't know if anybody heard. But they really need more garbage cans there. I mean, more, garbage disposal areas.
Noted. I'll look into that with our staff, and I'll also speak with Ari as well.
Thank you.
Carl, can I ask a real quick question? Because people have asked me this. Once all these comments come back and are digested by the consultant, at what point will neighborhoods be presented with what's actually going to happen or what's proposed to happen in their parks?
So that all is part of this evolution with the bond process. So once they actually kind of outline what the feedback was, my understanding is that they'll come back and kind of advise, of course, our department here in Parks, and then of course the board, and then we'll probably, I believe they'll be having some materials or collateral to be able to show kind of what the outline is, to be able to provide to some of the neighboring neighborhoods of kind of what the outcome was.
And that would be great, because for instance, if you went to George English and it says the community center is going to be upgraded or renovated, and then people were frustrated, like we're like, well, what's going to happen? And I would just say, well, they're not going to go and do architectural drawings right now. That costs money. Let's see if everybody wants to have it happen. But I think there's a little bit of frustration where people are not, they thought they would see more details. So
Right. So, and that detail is forthcoming. And I caution, because I've had many conversations with our neighbors on my tours in our parks that I run into, and I tell them, I try to remind them that, that it's a train that's moving, and we just haven't gotten to that point. And so once the program manager kind of gets all this information, then we can start to make some more decisions. Because if you recall, which we touched on earlier in this meeting, in 2016, we had the master plan, we had all these ideas provided by a lot of the outreach that was done at that time. Now we're moving forward with kind of revisiting what was presented in 2016 to see if that still holds true. And then if it does or it doesn't, then we can make some decisions on how to start moving forward with projects and to begin bringing some projects forward to the board to then spend the money and get the projects done. So it's coming. We got to get through the engagement part, make sure everyone's a kind of a process, because one of the main focuses that we wanted to do as part of the bond process is to be transparent with the process itself, and also give an opportunity for us to get through what these projects will look like and take into consideration what comes out from the engagement process to allow us to move forward and actually get some of this work done.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Wants to make dinner, he can't. Well, he can't make dinner.
Caleb, that's it for me.
All right. Next up is board comments. I know we'd had a concern expressed earlier about trying to have some sort of a tracking mechanism for what we're voting on with bond funds. And I know that's been brought up before in the past. Is this now a good time to discuss that, or is it something different that we need to be focusing on right now?
No. So my understanding is that we will have that tracker on dollars spending, as well as kind of what was previously thought. And so that's the conversation I think I'll need to follow up on with our program manager. And if that's not included, we certainly can include it in the materials that we provide as far as our tracker is concerned.
But you might be talking about two different things. I'm talking about, when I brought this up earlier and said I was going to make a motion during the new business section, that if you look at the spreadsheet that was attached to the parks bond, it allocates money to parks. I'm not talking about the granular detail of this much for this. I'm talking about $20 million to Holiday Park, I think maybe 20 or 25 to Carter Park. I don't exactly know the exact number, but X number of dollars to parks. Like, it matches up parks with dollar amounts. And that's the expectation. And so when we need something that says, like, okay, this is how it was previously allocated, so that when we go and take $7.5, now $10 million from somewhere, and we give it to the Aquatic Center, we are forced to confront the reality that that's coming from another park. I mean, during the vote, and for example,
we're on the same page. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm saying we need it now. We need today, when we took that vote, we needed to be for example, Mr. Payne said, as long as this doesn't come out of anything in District 3. But we don't know. It may well be. District 3 may get $10 million less now because we've given that $10 million to the Fort Lauderdale Aquatic Center. We have to be confronted with that reality that we're taking money every time something new, unaccounted for, comes up and we're asked for more money for it. We need something that forces us to say, okay, who are we taking this money away from? What park are we taking this money away from?
Well, there's parks that haven't even been described yet. There was supposed to be buying parks. That's what was my understanding of part of this whole board, was to find the properties that would be.
We've been doing that, and that's we've been doing that, and that's $30 million for that. I don't think like the $10 million we gave to the Fort Lauderdale Aquatic Center is going to come out of that $30 million. That $30 million is set aside for new park acquisition. The $10 million that we gave to Fort Lauderdale Aquatic Center, maybe it comes out of other parks coming in under budget. But if no other parks come in under budget, it comes out of some other park. Like, I don't know, I'm going to make there's a park called Hector Park, right? Let's say Hector Park was supposed to get $2 million. Well, now it may only get $1 million. And so that's what I'm saying. Something saying, here is kind of what was told to the public of how much each park would get. This is how much so far each park has gotten. And this is how much is overage. So like you'd have to show Fort Lauderdale Aquatic Center is now over by $10 million. And you have to look at it and say, okay, well, where are we going to get that 10 million back? And like Chris said, maybe maybe Lockhart and Tunnel Top come in under. And then we can see, okay, great. We went over on Aquatic Center, but these came in under, so it's netting out. But something to force us to realize like, oh man, we've gone over here, we've gone over here, we've gone over there. Like we're running a huge deficit here.
Right. Well, I think what he's talking about is that allocation schedule, but what I feel like when we talked about it before, it was kind of outdated, right? Because of some of the issues.
It may be outdated as to particular projects within a park, right? Like, I don't know, like a pet peeve of mine is the scoreboard at Holiday Park. Like, okay, do you really need a better scoreboard? It may be outdated as to like, but it's certainly not outdated as to the dollar amounts to a park. I don't think any neighborhood is going to say like, oh yeah, we no longer need the X number of dollars that were promised to this particular park. They may want to spend those dollars in a different way than is outlined in the, like, you know, the line by line, the different projects within a given park, but they're still going to want the number of dollars that were allocated to that park. And if we've given that money away by the parks that just happened to come first in the process, then, you know, we just need something that's showing us, you know, look, here are the parks that are like in the you know, the latest in the timeline on our current trajectory. There literally won't be a dime for them left. We don't know. Maybe that's not the true, but we just need something to show us that. Like how I know Holiday Park is 20 million. I know Lockhart was 25. I think Carter Park was 20 or 25. I think Tunnel Top was maybe 25, but I don't know all the other parks. And that's what we need. This park was told this much. This park was told this much. This park was told this much. Here's how much has gone to it. Is it over or under?
Right, and I completely understand where you're coming from, and I don't want to, you know, belabor this, but you know, to Mariana's point is that list was kind of created from the 2016. I do agree with you that the areas of the allocation are what they are. However, as part of the public engagement part, let's say, for example, one of the parks have, you know, suggested they want something else that may be cheaper than what they wanted before. And so with that being said, I think that you all kind of agree that, you know, with a tracker, you know, an expansion of the tracker, we can kind of keep tabs on the dollars so that you can be a little bit more educated on what has been given versus what has been spent.
Yes, I totally hear what you're saying, but I also want to make sure that we're treating communities fairly. So for example, if, you know, one park in a given community, the feedback comes in that they want something different and it comes in less, I think we want to make sure that, okay, we still spend that money in the same area. So you don't end up with parks in certain communities just getting less and less and parks in other communities getting more and more. You still want to keep it, like, you want to keep it equal. You want to keep it fair. And so if you don't spend as much at this park right here, you still spend that same money somewhere nearby where those residents still have access to that. And I think that'll be important.
Can I throw this out? And listen, I understand the resources and the equality that you have going on there, but realize that the different communities have different needs in those recreational components too. And I think the goal is to make sure we're able to meet the needs of the community from a service, whether it be recreation or whether it be facilities, and see how that comes about, more than are we making sure that $10 goes here and $10 goes there. And go that route. And so I believe that's the responsibility of this board to make sure that the needs of the community are met and see where it goes. We have to be accountable for the dollars, Carrie. I completely agree with you. We can't, you know, just have a loosey-goosey run, and I agree with that and see where that goes. But we're going to see as we evolve in this, you know, what are the true needs of that community or that community park, and what does the community want in it? And so I think tracking that, Carl, is a really big deal. But I hope we don't get into, well, we spent $5 here, we got to spend $5 there, because I don't think that's what he's done. To be honest, we're going to spend.
You're right.
And that community is going to need 15. They're going to need 15, right? That's how that's going to go down.
You're right. There will be some communities that have already been disadvantaged that need more to get just brought up to the same level other people are. I didn't mean it's got to be like, oh, $5 here, $5 there, but just on some level that we're meeting the expectations that people had when they voted for that bond. They had a certain expectation that a certain amount of money would come to specific parks. And I just want to have some idea of where we're at on that and where we need to recoup where we've gone over.
I agree. There needs to be accountability and tracking. I'm also curious, is that part of the bond manager's scope or the program manager's scope, or is that something that we need to be doing internally from the department to the board specifically? And
yes, I believe it is. And in the event it isn't, I mean, that's something that we can certainly do as well, but I believe it is.
Okay. And then Alex, I see you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, I want to just chime in. I think we all believe in a fair, equitable distribution of the funds, but chiming back in with, Carl's, going back to the 2016 master plan, my question is, that's 4 years ago. Obviously, there's other things that are coming into the scope now, like the pickleball, skate parks, things like that. How accurate do you think that 2016 master plan is, just from right now versus back then? Is that out of date? I mean, I remember being part of that. I remember the park's vision that we were trying to put together. Some of the I think parks that we were trying to emulate, like Pompano Park is a great park that has facilities that Fort Lauderdale doesn't have, including golf and good volleyball courts, skate parks, things like that. It can go on and on of stuff that we're missing that need to be a part of the conversation. And since 2016 master plan came into the conversation, I'm wondering, is it still accurate? Do we need to revisit that? What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, so to answer that fairly, I would say that in some areas, it's probably going to stay the same. And then in some parks and areas, it's probably going to change. And that's really the driving force of the engagement, is to make sure that there's an avenue or vehicle to voice what those changes are, or are we on the right track based on the research and the outreach that was done 4 to 5 years ago.
Can we redistribute that master plan? I don't know. Maybe it'd be a good idea to just kind of look at it and see where we're at. I know the pickleball has been a hot topic. I'm not a pickleball player, and it seems to be just something that we need to address in the community to the people that like doing it. But there's also a lot of other stuff that is not available to a lot of people in Fort Lauderdale. So I want to try and make that part of the conversation moving forward this year.
That's a great comment, Alex. Redistributing the master plan. There's a lot of people even on this board that haven't been in the communities. That plan was done before, some of us even moved here, or some of them. And it's a good thing to look at. But I think also the program manager, the bond in their community engagement, is actively revisiting that. And it might be one of the blessings of having the same program manager as the same company that did the master plan.
The master plan's online on the city website as well.
I was just about to say that. Yeah,
Thank you.
The master plan is also
I gotta look that up.
Online.
It's been 4 years.
I don't think I can put a link in the chat, but if you just Google City of Fort Lauderdale Parks Master Plan, it pops up.
Thank you, Mariana.
Any other comments that board members need to address here?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Isn't the survey that we're doing presently going to help tell us what the communities want, as opposed to living to the letter of the law of the master plan?
That is correct.
So,
Carl, I have a question about the survey.
Okay.
I know AECom's doing it, not us, so maybe I'm asking the wrong person, but I haven't taken the survey yet. I'm about to. I'm a procrastinator. I wanted to get more information. But when you take the survey, does it ask for any sort of, does it ask for your demographic information? If it does, then.
So yes. So and not only that, there's also an area for you to add, like additional comments if you wanted to say something that may not be easily available there. You could.
I guess what I'm getting at is, like for example, as a parent of little kids, it's been hard to do anything during the pandemic. So, and you may have other people who don't have very good access to internet. Like you may have communities, be it based on economics or their social situation in terms of family or whatever, that get underrepresented in the survey, but are very much a part of our community. Like, let's say, for example, we have a very active seniors community. But let's say that when you look at the survey results, you find that like only 10% of your respondents are over 55 years old. Then you'll know, well, hey, we have this really important demographic of our community, but we really didn't get their feedback in this survey. Is that being looked at? And do we have a plan about like how we might address that to make sure that we get a good reflection of the people of our community and the different subsets of that in the feedback that we then base decisions on?
So to answer your question directly, yes. And anybody who is, uses the engagement portion can, comment on any part. You can search based on district or, your surrounding areas, but there is information that is received from the individual where they are actually located at, so that the program manager can have an idea of, who's making that comment and from where, to be able to articulate and provide as to whom is driving that information and where.
Carl, let me ask this, and might be off page, but we've hired a program manager to administer a $200 million bond, which we just allocated $3.5 million of tonight. Yet we're talking a lot about them and what they're supposed to be doing for us. No one's present from them. Are they supposed to be present for these board meetings? Would it be good to have a representative of their company to be able to answer some of these questions? Because we're asking a lot of questions related to this.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and hopefully, I'm able to answer them well enough for you. So here's the challenge with that is that, as you know, these individuals are not cheap, and so anytime that they come, there's to sort of speak, a bill associated with that. So we are kind of inviting them on certain points to, as part of their contract, to kind of go over specifics as it pertains to the bond and some of the bond projects and that type of thing. But to have them here at every meeting, then that certainly would impact their cost.
Carl, I didn't know we were on the clock with them. I thought that would be part of the contract, that they would have to, discuss these issues with the board.
They are.
Okay.
They are, but they're just not going to be here every meeting.
Okay.
All right. Do we have any other comments out of the board? Items for discussion, new business. Do we have any communications to the commission?
I do. I would have liked them to be present today when we had that vote. I think that was a big part of the reason I voted no. It would have been great to have someone from the district there, or the mayor, for a vote to just allocate the millions of dollars for something that should have been budgeted for a long time ago. That's the main reason I voted no.
Is that something you want to communicate to the commission?
I would like them, if there's going to be maybe a future vote, or obviously this vote was rushed. It's something that in the past, I've seen it happen on this board. I'm hoping to slow the roll on some of these things. And I would like to communicate that, I noticed on the emails and things that they might be present for some of these meetings. And I haven't seen any of the commissioners or mayor present for any of the meetings. And it'd be nice to get them involved, at least, for one or two here or there. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if anybody wants to, forward that on to the commission, but in my opinion, I think that it'd be good to have them, because they have a little bit more inside knowledge to some of these problems that we've been dealing with. And it seems like we're cleaning up the mess, you know? That's all I got to say. Bye.
Not sure how to ask that politely other than maybe we make a motion to put something where if they're asking for anything greater than a certain amount or additional things outside of the normal bond scope, that somebody from the elected official be
Can't
present.
we just say that it was like noted? I don't think it needs to be like a motion.
Okay.
Right, so let me chime in real quick. So typically, anything that we have that we're asking our commission to take an action on, those are things that we would send for communication to commission. However, since you posed it, I mean, I'm certainly, if it's up to you, Chair, to take a vote in that sense, if that's how you elect to proceed.
Carl, wasn't that the role of Chris Lagerboom being here? He was actually speaking on behalf of the commission in his capacity as city manager.
Certainly, I mean, I can't really speak to if he was directed or to come directly to the board, just based on from what I gather, and I have not had any direct conversations with Mr. Lagerboom regarding that, but you know, he was given a directive to close the gap, and based on this conversation tonight, he wanted to deal with the board first to see if that was an appropriate way to identify funds for it.
Would have been nice to be able to say to the commission, though, this should have been the top priority to begin with, as opposed to the diving structure.
Maybe that's a better statement to even say to the commission, is something along those lines.
The dive platform was a luxury.
I understand.
Everything else is not.
I will be mentioning it to my commissioner that I didn't really appreciate being put through that exercise, although I appreciate having the building redone, but I don't like having stuff thrown at us like that. Like,
yeah, we got sandbag tonight, so I'm gonna mention it personally as the president of the civic, civic association in my neighborhood, to our district commissioner, and I'll let the mayor know as well. But as a board, I mean, I don't think we should be getting bullied around like this. I feel like we got a gun held to our head tonight about this, and we pulled the trigger on the vote, and it happened. But I just don't like it happening so fast. We didn't have a chance to really go through everything. I'm glad it's happening, but I think I agree with Carrie that we are the only front lines between the bond and the people that are asking for the money. So we got to.
Well, the commission has to approve it. I mean, we're not the ones. We're not the last hurrah. The commissioners have to approve it. But
agreed.
Tunnel Top too. Wasn't Tunnel Top like that, where they all of a sudden needed a lot more money?
I was late for that meeting, and I agreed to it, and that was the last.
For the darn vent.
Pardon?
Remember, it was like an extra $2 million for a fan to get the tunnel fumes.
Yeah. And I was late to that meeting. I didn't get all the, but I do remember that I felt like I was getting bulldozed on that meeting, and I made the decision that was the last time I was going to keep my mouth shut, and I just voted, to go along and get along. But I'm not going to do that anymore.
No, I mean, this is just poor judgment on the city commission to put the dive tower in front of the south building. The plan is,
my problem with this is we're all looking hindsight at what they did before we got here or what those priorities were done. I don't like somebody coming and changing the scope of things. The reality here is that this was going to get done, and it was going to cost, I believe it was going to either cost someone in the city probably 40% more if we don't do it now, years to do it. It was going to be a significantly more expensive project. It would shut down the pool again. And I guess, and I'm sorry guys, 30 years ago when I worked for the Parks Department, that building needed to be shut down then. How did it not be a priority in the original plan? I think that's the question.
That's a good question.
In the original plan. And to hold that project up for another year while we debated $1 million, but we purchased a piece of land on Andrews Avenue next to Wilton Manors for $1 million last week without blinking. This is when we go to the grand opening of this facility, you want to be proud of what's there, what's going on. And there's a tremendous amount of people that are going to do it. So I'm feeling like I'm defending that I jumped out there, and I'm sorry, there's nowhere in this screen where I can see people's hands up that want to talk about something. And It just, I jumped out there because this, I believe, has to be done. And so I apologize for jumping out there quickly with it. It wasn't my intention to usurp conversation. You can't finish that facility without doing this locker room. We couldn't take, I don't believe.
Mr. Martin, I think it's more about not you jumping out and giving the motion. I think it's about the process, right? Like the fact that they approved the diving tower, then they came back later to us on something that should have been in the original plans. We feel like we have to say yes, because as you just said, it does need to be done.
Gotta be done.
When there are unsolicited bids or any sort of so an unsolicited bid would be one thing, and we're going to get more. Like I said, if AECOM uses subs, or if AECOM, I get AECOM's going to use contractors, and those contractors, when they're working on projects, they're going to come back to us and say, hey, as long as we're here, we might as well do this. And they're going to submit bids in the hopes that we'll pay them to do it. And then there'll also be things where AECOM says, hey, as long as we're here, we should do this. Is there a way to just get us involved earlier in the process rather than here is the unsolicited bid, here's the entire scope, vote yes or no? More along the lines of, hey guys, we're thinking about that we need to go ahead and do the South building. At our next meeting, we're going to come to you with a presentation about that. If you want to gather questions or think about it or talk to your commissioner ahead of that, that would be a great thing to do. But please be aware that at your next meeting, you're going to be asked to allocate funds to a park above and beyond what are allocated to that. Because I think for me, that's the real rub. Greg, there was no problem with anything you did about making the motion or talking. Nothing. It's nothing about that. It's about just the way it came to us out of nowhere. And I get you're saying like we spend $1 million on a piece of land on Andrews Avenue, but that is accounted for in the bond. There's $30 million for us to spend on new property. That was perfectly accounted for. This $10 million now, $10 million extra we've sent to the Aquatic Center was not accounted for. And so if we're going to be asked to allocate additional money to projects above and beyond what's allocated for, we should have more of a heads up.
That's a fair statement, Carl. The agenda, I thought we were just hearing about the progress of the pool, to be honest. When I read the agenda, I didn't realize.
Maybe as a board, we should just agree to not hold a vote or a motion until the following meeting so we get a time to do our homework on it. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I definitely felt like we got off guard.
Yeah, very reasonable.
I don't know if it's wait till the next meeting to vote on something, because a lot of times they do need, like we meet once a month and we've had meetings get canceled. So I do know that we need to make decisions, but maybe if in the agenda it could say, in all caps, they're looking for an extra $3.1 million, be ready.
I agree with you on that, Marianne. But the only problem is that we're only meeting a month apart. We're not allowed to communicate, outside of this, which causes a problem. So if someone is going to come asking for money, I feel like this is not the first time that we've had to give that money sight unseen without knowing anything but what the pitch is right in front of us. And I just feel like that's not right. I feel like
they could have given a summary of what it was going to be about to Leona. And Leona could have emailed it to us.
It was.
And if you had it in the agenda, you could look it up.
It was sent out, but you have to read between the lines to understand it. And the way it was sent out, it was the project PowerPoint was sent out, and later on you could see the shortfall that they had, and the telltale was the city manager's name as the first person on the agenda would probably tell somebody he's coming for money. But yes, I agree. It should have been stated as such.
I saw it as an update on there. I didn't see it as a pitch for money. So I didn't even think twice, but call me naive, I didn't see that one coming.
In that whole repository that I was talking about a few months ago, it would have been nice if we had been given heads up about this and be able to refer to the backup material that they were going to provide us here and tonight.
Well, the big question on this is there a communication that we need to make to the commission, or is this something that we need to focus on more so as a board item that we just need to work in the department to make sure that we don't get floored so readily?
I think it's a board procedure. I think if kind of along the lines of the allocation schedule and seeing where everything is, if they're asking for more money, if Leona, if you could start putting it in the agenda, because like I looked through all the supporting documents and I read the accounting. I just didn't. I guess I should have known they were going to be asking for that shortfall, but I just didn't know. And yes, we need that locker room, so yes, I voted for it. But if we had some warning and could have done the research on it, that would have been a little better.
In that vein, I would have called my commissioner and said, who am I taking these $3.5 million from? Who do you want me to take it from to do this? You know, and I love my commissioner, but you know, that I would have said, whoever's going to come present to us, I want them to tell me who I'm taking this money away from, because it's all allocated.
Yeah, so Carl and Leona, if we could just maybe focus on those two things as part of our board procedure.
I'm sorry, I'm going to chime in too, Mariana. I know, I think you're on the right track, but let's face it, we are just an advisory board for the city commission. So if they need to ask for funds, I mean, they should just step up to the plate and ask for funds. You know, I mean, it's not like we're not going to approve it, but I think we just got to do it in the right way.
So to answer your question, we certainly can. You know, on my part, maybe I can do a better job of saying exactly what that particular item was. I apologize about that. And we can make that adjustment going forward.
Thanks, Carl.
Well, if we have, go ahead.
Brucey, while I have you connected, do you want to go on record for your vote for the motion for the FLAC update? Since you had difficulties at the time of voting? Okay, I guess she's gone. You could go ahead, Caleb.
Well, if we have no direct communication to the commission, I move to adjourn.
I second that motion.
I second that motion.
Can we all have without a roll call, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye. Have a good night.
Aye.
All right, guys. I see you
Aye,
again.
Good night. You guys exceeded my
Good night.
45 minutes.
Thanks,
night,
Caleb.
everybody.
You guys.